and before you begin, time limit is 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative Byrd, Representative Bean. I have a hand up. Phil Scanlan, 1832 Village Court in Mill Island, Florida. I just gave you a handout that's a 2-page summary and with an attachment. And just for background, I spent a year working with the Citizen Committee, negotiating with the board on their strategic plan. And then some other people worked on charter. In summary, there's section 12 in here that recognizes the port is not exempt, is exempt from all laws of city and county. And I really think that should be taken out because we've had about a year of upset in the community because there are laws passed since this charter was passed in 1940 that gives the city and county right to manage development and land. They should have that right. And so I'd like you to consider that. Second, this port has a right for eminent domain, and now they're asking for expanded powers. The attachment to this shows you they already have 14 more powers than any other port in Florida, actually 17, and some 18. So they already have more powers than any other port, and it just doesn't make sense. You should be bringing this port in line with other Florida ports, not adding more powers. They've asked for 4 or 5 more powers today. Going into utilities, communications power, we have people doing that. We have companies doing that, making a profit, paying taxes, and they're regulated. And now this port wants to go into those businesses and not pay taxes and have eminent domain and not be regulated. Now, we could look at the port and say, well, they're not going to do that because they don't make money. But once you give them the authority, anybody can come to them with money and use their authority, so you could be giving it to private businesses. The port is struggling on doing its port business, but that doesn't mean it should charge out in 17 more directions. They only, actually last I looked, they didn't even have a staff person to help them run the port, the commission, which I think they should. And I think they're planning to. How do you run in all these other businesses without anybody to run them? This is way out of line with what the state should be chartering, in my opinion. And I think you should not do what they're asking, and you should do the opposite. You should be bringing them in line with the rest of the ports in Florida. In fact, 6 ports in Florida are oversight by the municipal community they're in. This is a pretty small port. They have 17 more powers than the Port of Jacksonville. It is way out of line. Now, just because they asked for it is not a reason. The state is granting it. I don't think the state should be doing power utilities or communications at the state level, or the county or the city. Why would you grant this little authority to do that? They're supposed to be doing port business. Now, I think we have a lot of trouble with the strategic plan because the charter authorized them to go in oil refineries and casinos and build stuff in Georgia. I don't know how Florida authorizes them to build stuff in Georgia, but you still got that in there. You authorize it, we're going to end up with it somewhere showing up in what they want to do. And you're going to have community upset again. I think it's just outrageous that they have this much authority and that they're asking for more. And that we've been through so much upset in the community because of this. I ask you to rein it in. Don't pass what they've asked for. Go back and look at reducing it and getting in line with the rest of the ports in Florida. By the way, the rest of the ports in Florida, the big ports, are needing a lot of money now. I mean, enormous amounts of money for dredging and to compete in the world competition. We probably don't need 15 ports. I don't know if our port is one of them. I'd like to think it is. It's been a good port. They do a good job. But you ought to be looking at what's your port strategy. Some of the little ports have had trouble, and our port is having a little trouble. I think they should be focusing on doing port business. Thank you. Any questions?
I've got a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Mr. Scanlan, thank you for your work. You've been involved for many years looking at ways to improve the quality of life on Amelia Island. My question is, I know you don't like the product that's here today. You have just said to vote against it, but it does, in fact, put new limitations on the port. It takes away oil refineries and also the beach casino issues.
Well, let me thank you for
So if we were to pass it,
not authorizing them to do a casino and oil refinery. In fact, when I worked with the port directly, they agreed to take those out of the strategic plan.
Very good.
But they had them in a plan. And I
But
think
my
that's a
question-
good, those are a good
Yeah.
thing. Those two are good things. But they're way, way less than sufficient for what you should be authorizing here. Because you're authorizing way too much, way too much. Now, one other little thing. The citizen committee that they did set up, and they did appoint, which didn't include me, but included some good people, did recommend that there should be a report quarterly on the toxic materials. And the toxic materials is what got this community so upset. When they were going in a coal without people knowing about it, and Kansas Morgan's, you know, a whole bunch of problems. And worries about future. Well, unanimously, the citizen committee recommended to the Port Authority that that should be reported on quarterly. We should know what toxic materials, and that should be put in the charter. But that didn't make it through this commission to you folks. So that's a shortcoming, and that's an important one.
So my question
I would,
is still, you still say vote, even though it puts new restrictions
oh,
on the,
absolutely.
you're still saying vote against this, this
Absolutely,
plan?
and the Port Commission has already agreed, and I told them to their word anyway, they took it out of the strategy. They're not gonna do an oil refinery casino, and that's the only thing they took out of the charter. The charter is way out of line. I don't need this charter to be modified, I don't think, to not get an oil refinery casino on May Island. Because they already told me they're not gonna do that. And I think it makes sense that they're not gonna do that. You don't need to authorize them a bunch of other things to give me that, so.
Well, if they said they're not gonna build something in Georgia, you wouldn't accept that then either?
I don't care if they build something in Georgia or not. I think it's a little crazy if you authorize, that you have the authority to have them build something in Georgia. I mean, it would be strange to me if the Georgia state authorized stuff to be built in the Miami. It's like, how's that happen?
Very good, thank you.
Is there any